So thank you so much for joining us this morning. Dr. Tosif has already introduced herself. I would like us to start from herself. You can please introduce yourself again and give us a little highlight about what we expect from this panel discussion.
Thank you, Julia. As you all know, my name is Tosif Dean, a green champion. And I think from this panel discussion, I would really want us to form in a movement and use Kaph as our voice and to be able to pursue this movement on how the healthcare institution can be an example for the rest of the world, that even the African continent, particularly Kenya, can go green.
Thank you and good afternoon. My name is Aman. I am the Sustainability Project Manager at 2030 Plus. And my role, I'm an edge expert, and I develop basically designs or incorporate sustainable measures in designs for real estate projects, be it in healthcare, accommodation, residential accommodation, industrial, and yeah, I like to champion and push people to look at the green aspect of buildings, to give them more life, to give them more future, and to create holistic spaces where people are comfortable, yet going green. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Maloba. I sit in this space at this moment as a member of the African Fund for Endangered Wildlife. You probably know us as the people who gave you Giraffe Center. We are a Kenyan-owned NGO. We are passionate about sustainability and environmental conservation. We have been doing this for many years. And I especially would like to bring to this conversation a statement I learned long ago when I started engaging with the whole concept of conservation. It was a very long time ago. The earth was not given to us by our parents. It was loaned to us by our children. And this really is my motivation for engaging on this topic, and I hope that I can leave you with that passion when we leave this stage.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. I am Dr. Joyce Tonik. I'm the General Manager Clinical Services at Equity Afya currently. Quite excited to be here. My background has largely been in healthcare management, and specific to this particular forum is integrating sustainable practices into healthcare businesses. In 2019, I was nominated as the Global Sustainable Development Goal Pioneer in the UN General Assembly for good health and well-being in the workplace for a project that we did on sustainable wellness programs. And this is just an example of some of the other projects that we've been working on. And I look forward to the discussion that we shall have with the variable panelists as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, I'll go straight to it. What are green buildings, and how can we ensure that our hospital structures can embrace sustainability? What value do we as facilities have to go green? I'll go that to you, architect.
Thank you. I'm not an architect, but thank you. So green buildings are basically, what we're looking at is how can we conserve energy? How can we conserve water consumption? And how do we make the environment within the buildings more comfortable? In the sense that, I'll give you an example. We're sitting in this room right now. You can see a glass facade. There's a lot of heat coming in. I'm sure some of you can feel it. So the idea here is, if there's a lot of heat coming in, then you'll need a lot of cooling to make it to a comfortable level. If you use a lot of cooling, you're using a lot of energy. And that's just one part of it. So if you're using a lot of energy, of course, your cost of running this space is very high. But at the same time, you're also emitting CFCs into the environment, which is not good for our GHG emissions generally. So we're looking at designing spaces where all this is put into control, in a sense that we are looking at how you're conserving energy, when you're designing your spaces, how you're conserving water, and where possible, using materials that have low embedded carbon. Low embedded carbon materials, I can give you a few examples of high embedded carbon materials, is cement and steel. It's very difficult to get away from it, but there are ways to utilize less of it so that there's low carbon. There's low carbon emissions when building your buildings or reutilizing your spaces or something like that. So that generally that's the idea of green building. You're looking at a building that's self-sustainable, a building that gives you a longer life because of the elements that you implement in its design phase, and basically you're building buildings that are for generations to come. Yeah.
Since I have you on mic, could you tell us a few examples of facilities or buildings that you have put up in the recent past, and what you can see us as hospital facilities being able to learn from those facilities?
So I'll just give you some context here. There's two certifications to it. There's what we call LEED, which has been very complicated over the years. But the IFC has come up with a new certification called EDGE, which is it's efficiency in design, for excellence in design for greater efficiency. And it's a very straightforward tool. It's not something that's very complicated. I mean, there's a lot of architects or project managers who can easily implement it. And what it basically gives you is, it gives you a baseline. So it has a baseline database that tells you this is how much a general hospital or a clinic would use in energy and water. What can you do to reduce this? And that's where architects and designers come in and start putting in the elements that can change this slightly. And it's a very cost-effective, easy to implement tool. What hospitals can do, and some of the projects, I'll give you an example of one of them, is a recent building that came up is the Aga Khan University Center, which is ED certified, and it's advanced ED certified. And they're getting up to 40% water savings and energy savings. And what this does is that over a certain period of time, you have operational efficiencies of your facility. I'm not a healthcare expert, but I assume that the operational costs of hospitals are very high in terms of energy and water. If you implement these solutions from the start, then you have it is costly, yes, in the beginning when you're implementing the solution, very costly, but your savings over a certain period of time, over 7 to 10 years, are so great that it's mind-boggling why not a lot of people implement these solutions. That being said, there are some people who do implement these solutions but don't go for the certifications. So there is to a certain extent, I think the new buildings that we have, be it hospitals, have a few of these elements in them, but they're not certified, so we don't know what exactly are we saving. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Daktari, you have started on your going green journey for your hospital, and as the man has mentioned, there are certifications which other facilities or other organizations have taken up in terms of the green space. What is stopping us as hospitals? What is our inhibitants, and why are we not doing it as an initiative within the Kenyan space from your perspective, and how can we be able to now kick off this journey as Kaph?
Sure. Just want to emphasize great work as far as the new university campus is concerned. It's a campus and not a healthcare institution, so it's a good start. However, what is different from EDGE and other certifications is, for example, quickly comparing it with LEEDS. LEEDS has a healthcare module, and one of their modules is on indoor environment quality. Indoor environment quality comes with 4 big items: thermal comfort, acoustic comfort, visual comfort, and indoor air quality. And I think by being a sensitive healthcare industry, LEEDS definitely would be something that we could experiment here in Kenya. Why don't we have green buildings in Kenya? Because people think certifications are expensive. When we go for healthcare quality certifications, we talk about COSASA, we talk about SafeCare, we talk about JCIA. No one dives into JCIA immediately. They start small. They have Lean Six Sigma, as Dr. Lydia was explaining yesterday. There is Kaizen that people are doing. one of the challenges that I see why we are not quick to adapt is that there is no demand. There is no demand for green buildings. But if there was a demand that we would want green buildings, even the Kenya Green Building Council would have registered several healthcare facilities. Number two, the posts are prohibitive for these certifications. They definitely come with a price tag. But how about you do all the things that I'm telling you to do and then leave certification towards the end? At least take in the small steps that can be able to enhance. The other challenge why green buildings and the green building practices are not so common in healthcare because there's a big conflict with IPC, with infection prevention and control. There's always that challenge. We cannot recycle catheters. We cannot recycle medical equipment. But there are sterilization units that can actually promote that. I think the other and the last challenge that I want to address is there is lack of awareness. People really don't know what it means to go green. You can pick up the WHO climate-friendly handbook for healthcare facilities. You can pick up the Global Green Health for Hospitals handbook. You can pick up the SDGs for good health and well-being. There are things that we can do, but it's just that the starting is usually very hard. If we can create the awareness, we can mitigate the risk, we can build the challenges, and again to build on what Aman is saying, that when IFC and other non-agencies see that you're sustainable, you actually get reduced loans from institutions. I'm talking money because my background is finance. So I think that is also another added benefit for us to be able to consider for us as healthcare institutions.
Thank you. Before we go to the money, I want you to highlight a bit more on the people, profit, and planet. We can take care of the planet, and us as institutions may, to some extent, maybe ignore our people. Where do we strike the balance as organization and as healthcare facilities to be able to have a balance within the 3 Ps?
There's a very celebrated professor by the name John Elkington who published the 3P model in the 1997. And he talked about the 3 Ps, people, profit, and planet. And he said that if we conquer planet, the people and the profit is going to be aligned. It is a 3-legged stool, as I earlier mentioned, and there has to be perfect balance between the 3. When we are able to put environmental sustainability initiatives into practice, they actually affect people and profit. Profit because it reduces operational costs for us as institutions. But there are individuals out there who actually ask you some interview questions and they say that we heard such and such an institution is green. What are you doing about it? What if I tell you people will be employed to your institution because you're going green, because they care for the environment? Not to throw a spanner in the works, but research also suggests and shows that women are more green friendly than men. So the boy child, let's up your game.
Thank you so much. Let's go to what we like to talk about, the money aspect. Please, you can pass to Dr. Titonik.
Thank you.
How much do you think institutions should be able to invest? We can be able to start the journey now, but what kind of inputs do we need to be able to actually make our facilities green? We've already put up the structures. So maybe we can only involve the project with Aman with the project later. So what about the projects that we currently have as facilities? How much investments do we need to take up? And how can you be able to probably show the rest of the attendees that these are probably things that Equity Bank or your organization can be able to partner with us so that we can be able to now go green as facilities?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Harry, for that. And really, I think it starts from the top. And just looking at the main presenter, for example, being the CEO of her hospital, and many of the participants in this forum today being the CEOs of or decision makers in their organizations, is that the commitment to go towards going green, for it to be effective, needs to start at the management or ownership or leadership level. As Mr. Keith said earlier, it's many people when they hear about going green, they imagine it's a highly capital-intense investment, but small steps count. I remember setting KPIs at the beginning of the year for some of unit managers around green initiatives, and it felt like just an initiative to tick the box. And a few of them actually implemented. And the interesting thing is, despite the cost of electricity and water going up this year, their recurrent cost on electricity and water has remained flat for those who actually complied and put in some initiatives to reduce their consumption. So with there's immediate impact, and it improves the ability of those units to remain profitable into the future, despite an ever-increasing cost of doing business. The other thing is very affordable initiatives make a difference. LED lights, for example, are not necessarily something that you need to go and get a board approval to invest in. And we've seen that shifting to LED bulbs, changing electricity consumption in some of our units by almost 50%. So already that is a business case for even to build on to even more capital-intense investments. The other thing is we have had the same ways of engaging with communities as healthcare businesses, through medical camps, through giving health talks, etc. And the community sometimes starts to get a bit fatigued from getting the same kind of message and want to experience the healthcare provider in their normal day-to-day life. And we know that tree planting and a lot of the environmental discussions, even in the primary schools or in education environments, happen more at community level. How then can we possibly plug into that level of engagement with our communities, so that then, even as we address the environment with them, we are able to then implant our health messages as well. So then that way, the investment of doing something around health is quite minimal. Seedlings don't cost much. Labor, we already are a very labor-intense industry, so we have the hands. It doesn't take a lot of hours, and we are able to make an impact and also engage with our communities right where they are living their daily lives. The costs, the bigger, infrastructure costs that may come in with, say, the designs of the building, yes, would take a lot more from us as the healthcare businesses. However, there's a lot more we can do with far less resources. But just speaking on to the building, for example, unfortunately, we sometimes look at the initial cost of putting up that building. But in Nairobi now, we are having to invest more in AC to keep our drugs in the required temperatures. Because of global warming, the temperatures in traditionally not very hot areas are growing. So, and yet we want to keep the same traditional design of buildings. We want to use the same materials, we want to keep the windows small, etc. But then forget to look at the future of where things are going and start preparing for that now, so that the initial investment may seem a bit higher, but it will save us a lot of recurrent costs in the future. And the more expensive it is to sustain, say, quality around temperature control, inevitably it makes healthcare access harder, because then we have to increase the cost of giving the service, isn't it? So it then just becomes a vicious cycle if we do not address the environment issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to go to Elizabeth. We've talked about the money, but I want you to tell us, as healthcare practitioners, where can one learn about sustainability, and where should hospitals turn to if you want to be sustainable in the long run? Are there organizations that we can also partner with to be able to give us these funding so that we can be able to now start the Go Green journey?
Thank you. I like to think of hospitals as businesses. And I have been a patient, so I shouldn't think about hospitals as businesses, but I do think about hospitals as businesses. And one of the things I say is your biggest resource is actually already internal to you. You already have it. So your biggest resource is your board members and your staff members, especially your younger staff members, because the environment matters to them. And they probably have very many ideas that you have not thought about. They have a lot of information at their fingertips. They have access to it. They know how to look for it. Make use of them. This is something that matters to them. I hear a lot of people saying, oh, Generation Z, we can't get them to work with us. This is a Generation Z issue. If you can answer this, you will really attract them and retain them. The other areas, I think a lot of them were mentioned in your presentations. Sign up for the UN Global Compact. It's for companies, your companies. Sign up for it. Once you sign up for it, you have access to a lot of resources, a lot of information, a lot of support, a community of experts. There's so much that comes with that just by signing up for it. Go to the IFC. We've just heard about the EDGE standards, but IFC does more than provide these EDGE standards for buildings. It also does a lot to support private entities in going green. The WHO, specifically for the health sector, has a huge initiative called the One Health Initiative. And this is a lot driven by the fact that, and I know you're all aware of this, public health is more than just people. It's also animal health, it's also environmental. We all know zoonotic diseases. COVID was our most obvious one, but there are so many, especially if you live in this part of the world, there are so many zoonotic diseases that affect human population. We also know about the fact, we just talked about heating and cooling of medicine. I hadn't even thought about that. What I know is that urban heat causes a lot of problems for people with heart conditions. So we're having an increased challenge with people with long-term diseases because it's getting hotter in our urban centers. Urban centers are like 3% hotter than non-urban centers. And it has an impact on human health and on the care for your patients. It makes it more expensive. And also, when you have your facility, as we said, how do you keep your patient in an optimum environment? Again, you're either heating it or cooling it. It costs something. Other organizations that I can think of, there's a global organization called Healthcare Without Harm. And Healthcare Without Harm is working globally with hospitals, with facilities to try and see how can we help you to become more sustainable. FKE has a lot of resources on going green, and I know many of the members here are members of the Federation of Kenya Employers. And then one other thing is talk to your financial institutions, talk to your bankers. The banks are under a lot of pressure and have therefore created a lot of facilities and instruments to support ESG in businesses. So if you talk to your financial institutions, whoever they are, about sustainability, they probably have something that would help you out, including financing options and syndication of the same.
All right. So I think that's been a broad discussion in terms of what us as Kaph can be able to start our journey in going green. I'll just allow our panelists to give us the last comment, and then we can encourage question and answer session. So Dr. Tosif, you can give us 1 minute wrap up, and then we can close the session.
I think I'll wrap up as the way I had mentioned in my presentation as well, that it's not enough for us to just put these sustainability initiatives into action. It's important for us to build restorative systems. As I said, we are the first generation to feel the impacts of climate change and the last generation to do something about it. So let's build restorative systems now so that our future generations can reap the benefits from it.
Thank you. I'll just say that there's many elements to the whole sustainability issue. I think everyone here has picked up on something or the other. And it starts from ESG, it starts from your buildings, it's all of it. Just look for one place to start and do it properly, and then that will build you the platform to go to the next steps. Whether it's in ESG or it's in your buildings, just to add, even the old buildings can be converted there are all those possibilities that are out there. Technology is growing every day. We're getting new and new technology in that is enabling us to do a lot of things. But start somewhere. Someone mentioned the UN Compact Goals. I think it's a brilliant place to start. Start implementing some ESG policies, and gradually you'll see over a certain period of time your strategy grows and grows and grows, and you start putting in all the elements that come with being sustainable into your strategy. Thank you.
I think I'll close by leaving it at the point where I say we've talked a lot about the incentive, the positive reasons why you should go green. But it's time to think about that there's actually, so that's the carrot, there is going to be a stick. Kenya as a country is going to implement some ESG. It's going to be mandated. And you want to be already doing this thing before the government makes it compulsory, so that by the time they do, you don't have to look for a huge pile of cash to suddenly comply. So for the sake of compliance and in advance of such legislation coming into place, start thinking about how you become compliant with ESG guidelines.
I think just picking up from a point that you had raised earlier, there, and also Mr. Chief, is that there's increasing funding for green projects, which usually has favorable terms from a financing perspective. This has largely targeted other industries, say in manufacturing and energy. There is opportunity in healthcare as well, that we need to have a clear business case around that. And as your preferred banking partner, Equity Bank is ready to work with you on that. Please visit your nearest Equity Bank branch for those discussions. Secondly, what you do not measure, you cannot improve. So as business owners, business managers, what KPIs do we have for our businesses around going green and reducing negative impact on the environment, and as well as enhancing the environmental cause that we have? And largely, one small step makes a difference. So start today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A round of applause to our panelists.